This is a Successful Goals webinar. My name is Mukram. A couple of ground rules, I'll go over them quickly. The first one, you made the time for yourself to be here with me for an hour. Please honor that commitment. Take your cell phone, put it to the side, put it on, do not disturb. Let's really try and be focused and present here. Two, in order to maximize the learning, I want to make sure that we make this webinar as impactful as possible for you. One of the ways to do that is through interactivity. So as we're going through the webinar, at different points, I'm going to be asking you to put information in the chat box. It might be to share your goals. It might be to share, some of your actions, some of your challenges. Please, participate as much as possible. When you do that, it deepens the learning, the insights for you, which is great, but it also helps to spark creativity, inspiration, motivation for others on the call as well. So I'd ask you to be as interactive as possible. Three, this is going to be experiential. So when you're going through this, there's a number of exercises that we're going to go through. Some of these for some of you folks will be like, hey, this is amazing, love it, it's right in my zone. For others, it will be, I'm not sure, it's a little uncomfortable. Work with me, let's go there and create a safe and positive support area and space so we can all get the most from the webinar. Because really the goal here is for you guys to walk away with things that you can commit to and move forward to getting to your goals. So as we do that now, before you were probably just watching me shake. Now hopefully you guys can shake as well. One of the best things to do is start shaking it up. It gets all the anxiety, the nervous energy, those jitters, all that kind of stuff just goes right out. As we start shaking it up. It's a great way to get all the blood flowing, blood circulating through your body. The other thing where we realized I didn't have audio the first time was if you actually do cross crawls, which is you basically take your elbow to your opposite knee, and if you can touch them, and I don't know if you can see this fully on the camera or not, but if you can touch them, what it actually does is because you're doing the opposite, it is crossing your right hemisphere with the left side of your body and the left hemisphere with the right side of your body. And it actually gets your full brain engaged for the learning. So if you can shake it out, do some of the cross calls, we're in a good spot. And, you can sing too if you like. Twist and shout, twist and shout. That's right. I like to have fun on these webinars. Hopefully you do too. So hopefully you've got out that energy. The next thing is let's just all take a moment to breathe. And let's be fully present, because that's one of the most important things in really getting as much as we can from any of the information and any of the interactions we have on a daily basis. So I am going to start doing breathing. I'm going to keep my voice a little louder than normal, so hopefully that everybody can still hear me. So I like to close my eyes. You can keep them open or closed, but just kind of breathe with me. So a nice deep inhale through the nose. And exhale through the mouth. And as you take that deep, big inhale through the nose, feel that breath going right down to the bottom of your stomach into your abdomen, just expanding like a balloon. And as you breathe out, just feel that air coming out nicely. And feel your belly just relax. And with each in-breath, just repeat to yourself in your mind, I am present. And as you breathe out, just let a gentle smile come onto your face. So let's just do a few nice deep breaths. As you breathe in, I am present. As you breathe out, a gentle smile. All right. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that. I want to get started here. And first, just so you guys know a little bit about me, all my social contact information is there. You can reach out to me on any of those channels. If you're in Salesforce, then on Chatter as well. I have a family, a beautiful family. This is my family here, a picture of them while we were on vacation in Turkey, beautiful country. That's Aziz, my 13-year-old on my lap. On the other side is Heider, my 12-year-old. The one in the middle is Kazema. He's my cutie pie, and that's my lovely wife beside him. During the day, I'm a solution engineer at Salesforce. I also offer a number of services outside of that. I'm into energy medicine, which is a holistic form of removing limiting beliefs and blocks in the energy areas of the body. to help people move forward. I also offer coaching services and then a conscious leadership program that combines the best of the two with a number of daily practices so you can live your best life. The reason, one of the core drivers for me is really philanthropy and giving back. And so this is me coaching my son's soccer team. And, you know, I love coaching their teams. This is one year when they were the Blue Pigs. I don't know why 10-year-olds choose Blue Pigs. It doesn't sound very, you know, competitive to me, but they really seem to like it. And we got some shirts made up. In this goal of philanthropy, I've been very, I'll call it blessed in that most of my life I've been an overachiever. I've done extremely well at school. I've done really well in extracurricular activities, in the job market. Pretty much I've done extremely well at anything I've tried to do. The issue I've always had, though, is that the process of hitting my goals, the process of making it, was really, really hard. It was a struggle. It was filled with anxiety. It was filled with feelings of, you know, not being good enough, of not having confidence, of constantly pushing. And about a year ago, I had some breakthroughs of my own, in my own journey in terms of how I can re-look at goal setting so that as opposed to being this stressful, anxious-filled, am I going to make it? And I'm only good enough if I get to my goal, and will I get to my goal? And I could get rid of that and actually start enjoying the process and enjoying the journey. And really my biggest reason for being here is if anyone else suffers from those kinds of symptoms or has trouble meeting their goals and not feeling motivated, my hope is that by the end of this webinar, you'll have some actionable tips that you can use that will help you look at your goals in a much more holistic way and a way that actually builds you up. And I think this quote from Andrew Carnegie summed it up best. If you want to be happy, set a goal that commands your thoughts, liberates your energy, and inspires your hopes. And that's the kinds of goals that I want to talk about today. And how we do that so that it takes you from a place of being contracted, of that anxiety, that struggle, that push, got to be motivated, to a place where you are genuinely and sincerely just fully into whatever it is that you are trying to achieve. And so one of the things that I'd love to do and to start off the interactivity is I'd love if you can in the chat box, why are you guys here? I am like super grateful and appreciative that all of you took an hour out to listen to this webinar, but I'm really curious, what brought you here? So I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Maybe if you can just type it in the chat box, and I'd love to see kind of what comes up. Nice. I see some people with New Year's, new goals, curiosity, lots of changes, get some motivation for the new fiscal year, better goals, not great at following through on goals. Awesome. Looking at how to stay disciplined. Amazing. Learning from others. This is great. You know, one, thank you guys so much for tossing all this in the chat group. That's amazing. I really appreciate it. And these are things that I think we can all dive into as we're going through. So if we look at the content for the rest of the webinar, there's a few things. First, we'll look at successful goals, or what I call successful goal setting. We'll look at micro actions. So I think some people brought up things like time management. They brought up, you know, discipline on staying focused. I think micro actions are a good way to deal with that. So we'll deal with that. Third, buddy up. This is going to be a really important concept, and we'll get to that. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So first, we'll get started with successful goal setting. So what's a goal? You know, I'm sure many of you have goals, and because I love the interactivity, you know, I think that when we normally think about goals, I'm sure most people have heard of the SMART system, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Specific, you should be very focused and define it really well. It should be measurable, so you know whether or not you've gotten there. It should be attainable, so something that is within reach as opposed to something too lofty that you may or may not get to. Relevance we'll get to in a second, and then time-based. Is this going to happen in a week, a month, a year, 5 years, whatever that happens to be. And so this is a very straightforward format for goal setting. It's been around for a long, long time. There's lots of books and information has been written on it. Before I go in, I'm actually going to share one of my goals with you, and then I take this a little different spin than the SMART one. But what I'd love to understand is What are some of your goals? And so some of them I think came up in the why you're here. You want to have more motivation, you're trying to get through, but I'd love to hear, what are actually some of your goals? Are you trying to, hit a certain fitness level? Are you trying to get to a certain marathon? If you could type that into the chat box, that would be great. Are you trying to start up an exercise routine? Are you trying to eat better? What are those goals, and what do they look like for you? And the good news is, if any of you guys did the pre-work, I don't know if anyone did, but if you did, all those questions were in there too. So hopefully that gives you a little head start. But I'd love to understand, what are some of your goals, and I'm going to share one of mine with you. Awesome. Finding better focus. Amazing. Eat better, work out more. Nice. Work out regularly. Art skills. That's great. New goals for career development, well-being. Oh, travel somewhere new, get to 160 pounds. Awesome. Travel more. Yes, everybody loves to travel. It's great traveling, man. Stick to a better diet, recover from ACL surgery. Amazing. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Those are all amazing goals. Here's one of my goals. One of my goals is to serve millions and millions of people to understand and achieve their full potential. That is something that has been driving me over the last, I'll say, 6 to 8 months, and it will continue to be a drive for me as I go forward. Now, if you're thinking about that goal and you think about this SMART methodology we just had, if it was me, I'd probably be saying something like, I'm not so sure, Mukram. That's not too specific. Like, what does serve mean? How do you serve? How do people understand their potential? Like, can you be more specific? Measurable. Is that 1 million? Is that 5 million? Is that 7 million? Like, what is that number? Attainable. I mean, I've got amazing turnout on this webinar. We've probably got, I think, about 30 people on the webinar. So not quite at my goal of a few million, if you will. So I don't know if it's attainable. We'll get to the relevance in a second. Time-based, definitely not time-based. There's nothing in there that says it's going to happen in a year, in a month, in a decade, in 50 years, whatever. And this is actually where I think if we look at goals a little differently, it really helps in taking it from a struggle and a pain and trying to find motivation to one that really aligns with who we are and intrinsically moves forward. Now, some of you may be familiar with Simon Sinek. He does a lot of consulting in sales and marketing for organizations. He has this concept he calls the golden circle. If you're interested, you can ping me afterwards. There's a great little YouTube where he explains it. Really what he talks about is that when people communicate their value proposition, they start from the outside. I seem to have lost the pointer. They start from the outside, the what? So what they do. Hey, I, make a fast car. Hey, I make a better cheeseburger. Hey, I, do da 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 da. And then they talk about the how. I do this because I use better quality ingredients for the cheeseburger. I do this because, I have a better aerodynamically styled car. And they never get to the why. The why do they do this? Why are they in this business anyways? What is it about that? And he draws a comparison. He draws a number of comparisons. One is like with Apple and why Apple is so successful because they really understand their why, versus something he uses like the TiVo, which is probably by far the best DVR in the market, but commercially was a flop. Or he contrasts things like Martin Luther King and the Wright brothers and how they did so well. And I think this concept of why is really important. One, because when you think about the what and the how, they actually correspond to the thinking part of the brain, or the prefrontal cortex, the newer part of the brain. And all of us, really, when we function, we make decisions. When you think about making what does your gut say? What's your instinct? It's all made from the limbic part of the system. And that's where the why kind of resides. And so his whole philosophy was, you don't want to communicate outside in. You want to communicate inside out. And this setting works really well for goals. Right? If you can not worry about the what, hey, I want to travel more. I want to get to a certain weight. I want to, like for me, I want to serve millions and millions of people, right? It's not so much about the what, it's really understanding your why. And the clearer you can get into the why, the more alignment you will have with that goal. Why is it important? Right? If you are looking for, hey, I want to get a promotion in whatever time frame, why? Because most people say, well, I want to make more money, or I want more responsibility, or I want more of these things. that stuff doesn't necessarily hold true per se into the real why. It's another layer of the what, but you've got to keep digging down. Why? What is it? Why is that so important to you? What is it at its root? And if you think about it, one of the best ways to understand that is, what are your values? And when we think about values, you know, if I was to ask people, majority of people, and even me, I would have said things like, you know, well, I'm loving, I'm considerate, I'm compassionate, I'm, you know, intelligent, which, you know, are all true. And you may say those things about yourself as well. And they're all 100% true. But when we think about values, it's what do you do just intrinsically? And when I say intrinsically, naturally. If we were to look at your environment and where you sit, where you work, where you live, what does it look like? What's going on? What are the things that you just naturally do all the time that really define who you are? And there are certain values on that attribute scale that will be really high and certain values that will be really low. And so I'll give you an example of mine. One of my attributes is time management. And so for me, time management, I say, because it's not really like loving or compassion or anything like that. But what it is I hate wasting time. I have this inner, like, I don't know if you want to call it an itch or an edge or this like thing that just won't let me rest if I don't feel like I'm making good use of my time. And it doesn't matter if it takes an hour or 3 hours. It just has to be good use of that time. And so one of my goals is really around, or one of my values, sorry, is really around time management, making the most use of my time. And an example of how that manifests itself in everyday life, you know, I told you I have 3 kids. When I come home from work, you know, they all want to say, hello, how are you? For me, it's very difficult. Like, I can say hello real quick, but until I actually take off my shoes, put them where they're supposed to go, take off my clothes, put them in the closet where they go, take my bag, put it where it goes, so that everything is in its place, so that next time I need it, I know exactly where to go. That's really important. And so those are the behaviors that I will do intrinsically. Nobody needs to tell me to go do that. Nobody needs to push me or prod me or anything of that nature. It is so built into who I am at the core, my why, my identity, that I just intrinsically do it. And so the real question is, what are those values for you? What are those things that you just do naturally all the time, that in fact, you will just get so caught up in that everything else blends away, and that becomes your priority, because that will help you drive to your goal. And so what I'd love to do now is do a little exercise, because I know some of you might be like, well, I think I know my values. Some of you are like, well, that's a different spin. Some of you are like, I don't have a clue. So if you close your eyes with me for a second here, I'm going to close my eyes. And if you just start taking a few deep breaths, and I just want you to picture a time. Think of a time when you were completely in the moment, when you were just so fully immersed in what you were doing that everything else fades away. Right? The concept of time goes away. Anything on your to-do list goes away. All of those things just fade. What was it that you were doing? What is going on around you? And just picture that, experience it in as much detail as possible. There might be sounds, there might be things you visualize, there might be feelings. What are those things that just, when you're completely lost, when you feel fully enthralled in something? And if you think about that time, that's the first great clue as to what your values might be. Because the things you're doing, the way you're doing them, who you're doing them with, are all clues as to what your really, really deep core values are. And when you're doing this exercise, guys, I want you to throw out judgment or analysis or anything else, right? Don't judge your value as, oh my gosh, that can't be a good value, or that doesn't make sense. That's not a value that I want to be or that resonates. This is really about just identifying what are your values. Like I said, one of mine is time management. I really don't think that anytime you do, most exercise, anyone's going to go up on the whiteboard and be like, oh, my value is time management. It's really about what's core to you. Because the first step of goal setting, if you want to do it in a way that, as Andrew Carnegie described, that liberates your energy, that expands you, you want to choose a goal that aligns to your values. So what I'd say is you probably have a lot of different goals, right? If I saw some of them come up, travel. Why is travel a goal? You've got to ask yourself, why? Why? What is it about the travel? What am I doing? What's happening? Why do I enjoy it so much? And then you've got to tie that goal to your values. So that's one example of a values exercise that starts getting you in there. So if you start tying your goals to your values, what you will find is that the higher the value, the more intrinsically you do this, the more that it's ingrained in you, and the more you can tie your goal to that value, the more you will have the motivation internally to do that. Because this is something, your value system, that you do anyways. Now you've tied it to your goal. So achieving your goal is really just doing what you want to do anyway. So it becomes easy. No one has to push you. No one has to prod you. No one has to move it forward. And in fact, if you have a list of, I'm going to make it up, if you have a list of 5 or 6 values, if you could tie that goal to 2 or 3 or 4 of those top values, your ability to do that in an easier, more expansive way grows exponentially. And so for me, for example, when you think about time management, doing this webinar is an amazing example, because I've done a lot of coaching on one-to-one within my professional work and now outside also. This webinar lets me expand my impact. So when you think about time management, did I have to put time to prepare it? Yes. Did anyone have to push me to do it? No. To spend my Sunday putting it together, to put together a worksheet, to do all the mail lists, all that kind of stuff? No, because it's something that I love to do. Time management is important. And so now the impact I can make it in this 1 hour with this many people is huge, plus the people who see the recording. Another one of my values is presenting, which we'll get into a little bit later. I love presenting. So this gives me another one of my values to tie into. Because if you ask me what my peak experience is, when I'm alive, when everything else fades, it's when I'm presenting. It's when I'm in this mode. And so by tying these things there, even though there's so much work I had to do to put this together, I love it. I do it. Nobody pushes me. No one prods me. And that's what I want you guys to get to. Now, the third one may seem a little bit, I'd love for you to start visualizing every day. You don't have to do it for long, like 30, 45 seconds, maybe 60 seconds. Visualize and experience the feeling when you accomplish your goal. What does it look like? Who's around you? What are the sounds? What are the sights? What things are going on at that time? So for me, I told you one of my goals is to serve millions and millions of people to understand and achieve their full potential. When I see this, I see a huge arena. I see myself on a stage. I have a screen in the background. I have a mic on. I have people in the rows, right? Like all the details that you have, that you see, that you feel. Do this every morning and every night. Don't worry about the how it's going to happen. Don't worry about, when. Just let those ones go. Because really all that time-bound stuff drives more stress and anxiety. It either makes you focus on the fact you're not there yet, or it makes you focus on the fact that, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. Just focus on what does it feel like when you're there. And I know some of you guys are probably saying, wow, that sounds a little bit hokey. Here's the thing. If you actually look at the brain science, there's something called the reticular activating system, all right? The RAS. And if you think about this, what the RAS really does, and I'll actually step back. So we have I'll call it two major portions of our mind, or the way people have blocked it off. And when I say people, I mean psychologists, scientists, those folks. There's the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And everywhere around us, there is an amazing amount of stimulus that keeps attacking us, right? That's coming in and fighting for our attention. Our conscious mind, on average, can process about 40 stimuli per second, all right? So 40. Our subconscious mind is somewhere in the range of 20 million. So I just want to put that into context. Subconscious mind, 20 million stimuli per second. Conscious mind, 40 stimuli per second. That's about the order of magnitude. There's a massive difference. And so how do we figure out what does the subconscious mind take care of, and what actually gets up to the conscious mind. And what has that important function is the RAS, the reticular activating system. It decides what is important, what stimuli, what information, what sights, what sounds, what touch, what feelings, what everything that's going on in my environment do I send off to my conscious mind. And what you're actually doing when you do that visualization is you are priming your RAS, your reticular activating system. And what you are telling it is, hey, Mr. RAS or Mrs. RAS, when you're looking at the information, this goal and this feeling and this experience that I want, that's pretty important. So can you make sure you filter all of that stuff to me? All the things I need to know that can fall into place for me to make that happen. And so that is why I say to do that. And the most common examples you can give is if you've ever bought a car, I don't know if you're going to buy a Toyota, if you're going to buy a Subaru, like let's pretend you're going to buy a Subaru because, it's terrible weather here in Toronto and for all-wheel drive would be great in my car right now. So if I was thinking about buying a Subaru, the one thing that happens if you notice is all of a sudden you start looking around, you're like, wow, there's a lot of Subarus on the road. I don't remember seeing as many Subarus. Or if you've seen a newborn or you're having a newborn, a baby, all of a sudden there's so many strollers, there's so many car seats. If you're planning a vacation, all of a sudden things for that vacation start coming up. They're very common examples of things that you find important that your RAS will now start filtering. It's not that those things didn't exist before, it's that you never noticed them on a conscious level. Instead, it was being filtered out. And so that exercise helps to prime your RAS so that you get everything you need to be able to get to your goal. Hopefully that makes sense. During the Q&A, if you guys have questions, we can drill into that. So that's step one. So step two, micro actions. And this is going to be, I think, really powerful. Again, we're going to go into some brain analogy here. So if we think about our brain, there's two concepts. One, neuroplasticity. Essentially, neuroplasticity says that our brain is always growing and it's always able to develop. There was a school of thought, a few decades ago that said, hey, your brain's going to grow up to a certain age and then it's done. Whatever's done is done. You can't grow it anymore. Now, science with MRIs and things like that has shown that neuroplasticity exists, which means that at any time in your life, at any point, you can carve out new neural pathways. As you're carving out these new neural pathways, things happen. So if you have something that you've been doing for a long time, it's like the strong pathway here. It's a thick, big line. This is like a habit. It's a behavior. It's something we do all the time. We've done it so many times that's well trodden. It's almost like if you had a road, if I was going over a road, this would be like a nice, paved, smooth, easy road. It's such a comfortable ride. It just moves right along. Whereas when you try something new or something that hasn't been done as often, it's not quite as thick. And in fact, if we think about it in that road analogy, it's a bumpy road. It's got a lot of, maybe gravel and roots, and it's curvy and it's not nice and it takes more time. And so when we're trying new things, we're essentially, if we're trying to change our behavior, hey, I want to work out 3 times a week. Hey, I want to, learn to speak better. Hey, I want to do, get promoted. I want to do whatever, X, Y, Z. There's new behaviors and actions we're trying to do. And because this is not something we've normally done, that pathway isn't very well formed or is non-existent. And as you're trying to do that, the cognitive load or the amount of energy and time and focus it takes is a lot more than the ones that are already trodden. And so one of the ways to get around this is this concept of micro actions. And if we think about that analogy to the way your brain works and the way neural pathways are formed, if there's a small action that I can take that's not too big, just a little small one. Why? Because it's a new neural pathway. I don't want to take a big action because that's going to be really hard to carve that one over time and get it deep. But a small one, a little less load, a little less further to go, easier to do. And as I do that, I get a positive outcome. So I'm like, okay, that's great. So I want to do another little micro action, positive outcome. Another little micro action, positive outcome. And now this starts creating that new thread, that new pathway in your mind, so that that pathway starts getting better and better established, and it starts to become the new behavior, the new habit, the new version, if you will, or the true version of who you are, who you want to be. And so if we take some examples here, if you think about folks who, I think someone had, I think there were a couple that were related to health in terms of hitting a certain weight or working out more, exercising more. I'm going to take an example of, let's pretend you're someone who doesn't exercise at all. And then you say, okay, man, it's New Year's, all the gym memberships, they're in full swing. I want to go ahead and I'm going to hit the gym 4 times a week and I'm going to do it for an hour all the time. That's a lot. That's a big goal. From 0 to 4 is a lot. From 0 minutes to 60 minutes each time, that's a lot. So yes, you start off with lots of gusto and you start moving. And then slowly after a few weeks, that's why, gyms are packed in January, empty in February, because that just drops right off. What I would suggest is start with a small action, because it's not important the size of the action. What is important is the consistency of the action. And so instead of 4 times a week, maybe it's once a week. Or instead of 4 times for 60 minutes, maybe it's 3 times for 10 minutes or 3 times for 15 minutes. Maybe you don't even go to the gym. Maybe at home, you start doing some jumping jacks, some push-ups, right, some sit-ups, and that's it. 6, 7 minutes, 3 or 4 times a week. Because those take less energy, less time. It's less resistance in your mind. Because when you think about 4 times a week, 60 minutes, oh my gosh, that's so much time. I get 60 minutes, plus I got to get to the gym. I got to get back from the gym. I got to shower. I got to do all this stuff. It becomes really overwhelming. And very quickly, you lose the motivation. Whereas when you start small, it's an easier amount of time. It's easier to do. Your brain starts getting used to it, builds that neural pathway. That all of a sudden becomes more established. And so now that you've got this one established, now you can crank it up and say, hey, instead of 3 times for 10 minutes, I'm going to do 4 times for 10 minutes. Or I'm going to do 3 times for 15 minutes, right? And you can slowly build it up. And so this idea of a micro action works both on this ability of your brain to do new things at any one time. And that's why I said choose one goal. And for exercise number 2, told you I like that fun, brainstorm different micro tasks that will help you make progress towards your goal. And remember brainstorming. There's no bad ideas in brainstorming, ever. You're just brainstorming. Just toss them all out. And really, you want to get a ton of them out there, okay? Remember, absence of judgment. If you want, do this with friends, get together. They can help you. You can riff off one another, get more creative juices flowing. Really start brainstorming different micro tasks, micro actions that will help you move towards your goal. So for example, in my case, if you think about my journey so far, I told you my goal is to serve millions and millions of people to understand, achieve their full potential. I started off writing a blog. I think I did about 3 posts, like actual blog posts, until I stopped. One, because writing is not my forte. I like presenting. I like doing this. So that was one issue, right? Because it wasn't aligned to my values. So then I said, okay, well, let me figure out how I align this to my values. So I started doing video. Those videos have done much better, incredibly enough, but also it was something that was aligned to me, so it was easier to do. And I didn't set out a task to do, I'm going to do, a video a week for da-da-da-da. Like for the next 10 weeks, I'm going to do 1 video and I'm going to go and it's going to be hard. It was, let me just do 1 video. All right, now let me do 1 more. All right, a couple of weeks, let me do 1 more. And that video turned into doing some more talks. And those talks evolved into this webinar. If I had started off from the beginning saying, hey, I'm going to do so many webinars and this is what I want to do, and da-da-da-da, I probably never would have made it. Those micro actions help build you up in those baby steps that you need. And after you come up with that brainstorming, select 1 or 2 that you commit to. That's it. Don't overload it. 1 goal. Let's focus on 1 goal and make progress here. And then let's focus on 1 or 2 micro actions. That's it. So these ones, I'm a big fan of specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound, or attainable if you prefer. Really make sure they're concrete. Don't just say, I'm going to work out 3 times a week. No. I'm going to work out 3 times a week for this duration. And in fact, I'm going to choose Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right? I'm going to eat healthy. Well, okay, so I'm never going to have another sugar treat again. No, well, I'm going to have 1 sugary treat a day for the next 7 days. Right? Like, be very specific. And once they become consistent, then you can up-level it to the next level. What I'd love to do now is, because, I'd love to understand if anyone has micro actions that they have right now. So if you can, write in that chat box and let me know, what are some micro actions that you guys want to do? It's okay if you don't have them all. It doesn't even matter if they're good or bad. Just toss them in there. Nice. Daily meditation for 5 minutes. Awesome. Go to Pilates every Tuesday and Thursday. Nice. Regular writing, bus and subway home. Awesome. Nice. Play basketball just once a week. Great. Drink more water, amazing. I would even say be more specific about the drinking more water, right? Is that I'm going to drink 1 glass in the morning? Is that I'm going to drink 2 glasses throughout the day? Is that I'm going to have 1 every 2 hours? Whatever it is, right? If you can be the more specific you can get, it's amazing. Things like read 1 book per month, that's amazing. I would even break that down more because a month is a long time frame. You want to try and have a shorter time frame. I would almost say I'll dedicate 10 minutes a day to reading, or I'm going to dedicate 15 minutes every 3 days to reading, or I'm going to dedicate a half an hour every week to reading. Put it into a smaller chunk. I won't say the more micro, but if you can get into a smaller chunk that within a few days or within a week at the maximum, you can really kind of mesh that out. It really fits in to achieving your overall goal. Because a lot of times, and please, Greg, I think it was, I'm not by any means, do not take this as a judgment or picking on you. A lot of times you say, I want to read a book a month. And what happens is that month is a long time frame. And so what happens is during that month, you're like, okay, I'm going to do it, but it's okay. I'm busy right now, so I'm going to do it later. And all of a sudden you're almost at the end of the month and you're like, God damn it. And so either then you're like, my goal goes out the window because I don't think I can make it anymore, or it becomes a stressful thing of, okay, I got to find 5 hours now or 6 hours or 7 hours. So the more you can break it off, a lot of these things are, look like they're happening in a week time frame, which is great. I wouldn't go more than a week for any kind of micro action. I would keep that within a week time frame. And so figure out what that looks like. Maybe it's an hour a week, maybe it's 10 minutes a day, maybe it's whatever it happens to be. Learn to cook 1 new recipe a week. Perfect, right? Easy, time-bound, something you can do. And by the way, guys, just so you all know, 1, I love the interactivity, so thank you so much for taking part in making this as powerful as it is. But 2, thank you so much, because all of you being here, anyone who's part of this with me, thank you for being on my journey, because this helps me get to my goal of serving millions and millions. So I thank you very much. Now, I'm going to say, I'm sure most of us can relate to this guy with great hair down here, right? Here's today's to-do list. We got way too many things to do, right? We are overwhelmed. So it's great to have these goals and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to, cook 1 new recipe. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to write more. You've got to figure out, what is it that you're going to let go? What is it that you're going to do and deliberately, consciously, intentionally say that I understand this takes up part of my day today or part of my week. I now say that this is not as important to me, and I push it to the side because this opens up the 10 minutes, the 15 minutes, the hour that I need in that day, that week, to be able to do my new micro actions. And as you can tell, I'm a big fan of brainstorming and getting a bunch of things you can reduce for 2 reasons. 1, get a lot of ideas out there so you can choose the one that makes most sense now. But 2, as you start putting on more micro actions or taking more and more progress, you already have a list that you can go to and say, well, here's the next actions, I've already got them. Or here's other things I can reduce. It makes it easier to continue that momentum. And on this, you want to choose 1 or 2 that make the most sense now. So for me, when I wanted to start doing my videos, when I want to start doing this whole kind of webinars and all this kind of stuff, my eldest son, Aziz, he plays rep hockey. And so that's 4 times a week. And I used to go, he has 2 games a week, 2 practices. I used to sit there and watch every single one of his practices. And I used to sit there and watch every single one of his games. And don't get me wrong, I loved it. I enjoyed watching him play. He did well. Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost, but I really just enjoyed watching him play, and he enjoyed it. In order for me to make time to do these kinds of things, which really drive my passion, drive my fuel, drive my fulfillment, I needed to make a decision. And so I talked to him, and this is why it's really important, number 3, to communicate what needs to happen. I talked to him and said, hey, listen, Aziz, I love coming to your games, but I'm not going to be able to come to every game anymore. I'm going to come to every other game. And honestly, on practices, I'm probably just going to drop you, and then I need to go run some other errands. And that for me is how I was able to free up space to do the other things I love. Some of that was reading, some of that's doing these webinars, some of that's doing personal work on myself or self-work. The idea is figure out what those 1 or 2 things are, and then communicate and talk to the people you need help from. Maybe your wife or husband has to take care of the children. Maybe in my case, I stopped, going to his games. Maybe for you, it's just saying, hey, this is not a high priority task for me anymore. It's going to move to the side. Figure out what that needs and really make it smart. Those things are going to get low of. The things you're going to get rid of, be specific and measurable about them. I'm getting rid of this for this much time, this often, with this frequency. And that way now, you've got a framework. I'm just going to recap here for a second, right? You've got a framework now that says, hey, I have these goals, but got to figure out what's the why for me. Why are these so important to me? And yes, that takes a little bit of time, but it will completely change the experience for you. And tie those to your values. So your why is really who you are. Who you are is based on your values. Dr. DeMartini does a fantastic job. If you want any books, his books are great in terms of talking about value systems and how they really drive us. But if you can now tie that goal to those values, you will have the intrinsic motivation, the internal drive to make that happen. 2, micro action. We want to make sure we don't take big things. We want to take small things. And we want to do them on a repeatable basis so that we build those neural pathways that help us build the positive momentum and create the new habits that we need to become this, to achieve our goal. 3, get rid of the stuff you need to do to be able to make that happen. And like I said, some of these choices, you might have some easy choices, right? Like, I don't know, maybe some people are somehow get whisked away on YouTube or something like that. That's great. Maybe you just don't get whisked away and figure out a way to make sure you don't get whisked away. For me, it was a tougher choice. It's something that I really enjoyed, but at the end of the day, fulfillment, passion are really high for me. And I get that from doing these things. So I need to make that trade-off. So communicate, figure it out, and really be committed then to letting those things go. All right. So we've gone through those. We got one more here. This is probably one of the most, actually, I'll say the why is the most important. This is in terms of actually making your goals stick. I call this the yes club. This is, I heard a great term coined by someone, I can't remember the name of it. They talked about your encouragement committee versus your discouragement committee. And these are the people that no matter what you do, they're on your side. They are always there for you. Yeah, that's great. Amazing. I think you can do that. How can I help? What does that look like for you to achieve that? What kind of steps are you taking? Right? The people who are there in your corner. For me, one of those people is my wife. I could tell her, honey, I'm going to grow wings and learn how to fly. And she'd be like, awesome. Yes. Yeah. How are you going to do that? What do you need my help for? Right? That's the kind of people you want in your life. And I want to be honest, a lot of times it's not family. And it's not because family's not supportive or they're being malicious or they're not nice people. It's simply because they're trying to keep you safe. And sometimes their first thing is, oh, I don't want you to get hurt. So are you sure you want to do that? Really? Is that something that you're really good at? Those are not the kind of people you need to share your goals with. You want to find your yes club, the people who are going to raise you up, and you want to be communicating your goals to them. The American Society for Training and Development did a study, and they said that if you actually publicly declare your goals, you have a 65% increased chance of achieving your goals. 65%. What blew me away is they said, hey, by the way, if you share your goal and you commit to get an accountability buddy and share progress reports, like weekly or monthly progress reports, the chance of you achieving your goal goes up 95%. Because at the end of the day, we all have a time when we're going to struggle and our motivation's down, or we're really tired, or life is getting the best of us here, right? And you need that yes club. You need those accountability folks, those people who raise you up to come forward and say, that's okay, you've got this. You can do it. Let me help take on this so you can go back on track. This is a really, really key one, guys. And for me, if any of you follow me on social media, I did something called the Declutter Challenge, which is based in Feng Shui, but it's essentially for 9 days, you get rid of 27 items a day, every day for 9 days. And you really kind of get rid of the old to make space for the new. And so this was good because, day one was great. I was like, yeah, great. My closet's looking cleaner than ever. Day 2, day 3, get to the kitchen. By the time I was on day 6 and 7, I was like, oh gosh, this is starting to wear on me a little bit. It's a lot, getting rid of 27 things, But I committed my goals publicly on social media. And so it was like, well, okay, I got to keep going. Got to keep doing this, right? Because People are pinging me and talking to me, so I got to keep going. This ability to get that accountability buddy is huge. I don't have time right now, but if you actually go into it, there's a whole concept of mirror neurons and how we're wired for empathy and how those mirror neurons work, that when you actually associate with that positive peer group, those people who raise you up, it makes a huge difference. And scientifically, through that research, they've actually shown how that works. So a couple of things here, and I'm going to ask you to be interactive. Who is your accountability buddy? Who is your yes club? I would love you to take a couple of minutes and toss that in to the chat box, right? Who are these people for you? For me, I told you my wife's a huge one for me. But for you, it might be a friend, it might be a colleague, it might be something else. What is that going to be for you? How will you tell them? How will you update them on progress? Should they check? Great, perfect. Dad and fiance, amazing. Who else is out there, guys? I'd love for you to share. Wife, awesome. And for some of you, if you guys are at the point where it's like, hey, I'm not quite sure, I have to think about it, that's okay too, right? Looks like there's some friends on the journey. There's, girlfriends, sisters, family, my go-to mentor. Thanks, Gabriel. This whole concept really works. And so much of the time, we don't think about that yes club. You really need it, and think about publicly declaring your goals. And you know what? It doesn't just have to be people you know. There are a ton of groups. There are Facebook groups, there are LinkedIn groups, there are groups that meet in person. Like you're trying to do public speaking, Toastmasters, right? There's all these groups and different facilities you have. If it's not someone in your direct network, that's okay. Find out that network, find out that group, find out those people who are going to give you the reinforcement. If you're going on, going to run a marathon, you'll see a lot of people when they train for marathons, they train together with a training class or a training group because you boost each other together. And so here's the third one. Offer to be someone else's accountability buddy. Because you know what? You can help others too. And if anyone here needs an accountability buddy, I am completely open to that. So let's get that party started. I'm happy to be anyone's accountability buddy. All right? So if we're going to recap, guys, this quote by Earl Nightingale, I think really sums it up. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. I think this almost completely encapsulates all the messages I wanted to have in this webinar. If you think about the worthy goal or ideal, that's all about the why. It's not about what society says or someone else says is worthy. It's what you feel is worthy because it's related to who you are, your why, your values. It is the progressive realization. It is not actually about ever meeting that goal or reaching that goal. It is about making steps and taking progress and moving further and further along. A goal is an amazing tool to set a vision, to set a direction, to let you know where you want to go. But whether you meet it or not, the real bounty is the experiences you have along the way. It's all that learning and that growth and everything that happens while you move towards your goal. And so that's why I think this really sums it up. So lock it in, key learnings. On that sheet, guys, what are your key learnings? What are you going to commit to? On that pre-worksheet, it's there. If you don't have the pre-worksheet, that's okay. I'm a big fan of webinars or information. Actually, let me step back. Napoleon Hill sums it up really well. And he says, I'm paraphrasing here. Napoleon Hill is an author. He wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. He basically did I think like a 20 or 30 year study of people like Rockefeller and Carnegie and Ford and everyone, and said, what all these super amazing, traditionally successful people have in common. The big thing he said, and I'm paraphrasing, is knowledge is useless. Application of knowledge is power. And so this is really about what are you going to take from here? What are you going to do? And how are you going to move forward? 2, on the calendar invite, and I will be sending an email afterwards. There's a private Facebook group I've created. Why? So that we can share goals with each other. We can share action. We can share our challenges, our insights, our learning, and we can be the positive support group for each other. That helps lift us up and move us closer towards our goals. So I invite you, if you are so drawn, it's in this invite, and I'll send you the email afterwards that you can join that private Facebook group, and let's continue the learning. Let's make sure this happens. Because at the end of the day, when I do this webinar, I'm really hoping that you guys can take something from this and make it a reality in your life. And these are a couple of fantastic ways that are free, that are easy, that there's a whole community. If you're someone who needs more personalized services, I do offer coaching and other things that we can talk about, and you can ping me afterwards. So I know we're getting really close on time. That is all I have. Just remember, it must be borne in mind that the tragedy of life does not lie in not reaching your goal. It's having no goal to reach. And I really like this last one. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it, by Jesse Jackson. This is what this is about, guys. You are limitless. You can achieve anything you want. Here's a framework to help get you a little bit closer. And with that, I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I know everybody's dropping. Thank you so much for staying here, guys. If anyone has Q&A, just unmute yourself and you can ask. Otherwise, the recording will be available as well in the Facebook group.
Hi, Mukram. This is Shilpa. Just wondering if you can share the slides.
Yeah, I can share the slides. Absolutely. I'll put that in the Facebook group as either a slideshow. I'll figure out how to just toss it in the Facebook group.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. If not, listen, thank you so much, everyone, for staying here for the hour. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you got value from this. I'd love to hear from you in terms of feedback. I'll be sending out a survey as well. I wish you the best. If there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out, and look forward to continuing the journey with you guys in that Facebook group.